Okay, before we get started, if you would hit that subscribe button, that bell to get notified. We drop new episodes of Forever News every Saturday, 12 p.m. EST, and throughout the week, we re-upload those segments for your viewing pleasure. Please hit them buttons. You benefit from it. I'd benefit from it. We all win. But now let's get into it. I have a list of majority of the newbies in Weekly Shonen Jump that released their latest volumes of manga, and we're not necessarily going to talk about, oh, it sold 10,000 or anything like that. We do that in the top 50 best-selling manga of the week segment. You can check that out over there. One of the things I really wanted to speak about though is that it really just looks like a lot of these newbies are just not matching up. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again in case you ain't here. It feels like the peak of Weekly Shonen Jump so far, the climax has been the Chainsaw Man Jujutsu Kaisen era. Since that era has kind of come to a close in terms of the manga of like them being newbies, obviously Jujutsu Kaisen's still going and Chainsaw Man's in Jump Plus, but that era, that class, so to speak, of manga feels like has not been surpassed or even close to being met since it happened. Like all of the newbies in Weekly Shonen Jump from the next generation over, Sakamoto Days, Undead Unluck, and things of that nature haven't really exploded. It feels like, again, that was the previous, anchor. That was the previous big dog. But over here with the Shoseki rankings, I'm looking at it and it's like, dog, I don't know if Shonen Jump is going to be in some real trouble. I know a lot of people will be like, yo, you're fear mongering. But to me, it looks like it's trouble when you can't top an era that is already a few years old. Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen were like 2018, 2019 manga. Yeah, they're still kind of going, and of course Jujutsu Kaisen is more popular than ever, but always thinking about, well, okay, yeah, Akutami said that the manga is about 1 year away from ending. What comes next? What replaces Black Clover that it's on its final arc? What replaces My Hero Academia now that it's final arc? What's going to replace One Piece now that it's on its final arc? And then I look at this list and I'm like, okay, well, Super Smartphone debuting its latest volume at 170, and of course it's canceled already, which I guess smart move, although I kind of question this. Follow me this one. Because they're going to cancel a Super Smartphone and a ton of other manga, right? Because sales didn't go good. So oftentimes I look at it, because, the placing is based, of course, on the sales that they performed or whatnot. Why would it be in Shonen Jump's best interest to send out, let's just say, 10,000 copies, 20,000 copies of Super Smartphone Week 1 when they have no plans to ever continue it again? So I feel like sometimes when I look at, again, the Super Smartphone at 170 place, a High School Family at 121, it's because they don't see the value in shipping out more books. Because, yes, there is a certain degree of supply and demand, but in general, there's nothing that they could gain from Super Smartphone. It's a failure that they had to cancel. So you're going to be at 170 place. You're not going to sell that many books because they're not going to print as many books, and they're not going to ship out as many books because they feel, based off of their reader surveys and all of the knowledge that they accumulate, it's time to cancel this when people probably don't care about it. Let's move forward. And then you go up a little bit, you see that P debuts at 18 with its latest volume. Again, that's not great. I think it was just confirmed that P is like at 400,000 copies sold with like 6 volumes, something like that. Not the greatest bang in the world, although a proper anime for that will help. Yozakura Family, I think they, for the 5th time, announced the anime is coming. Place 16, again, I don't expect the sales to be much. And then you see like 5 and 6, Witch Watch and Elusive Samurai. Out of all of these manga right here, I will say that Elusive Samurai has a chance of being a big shonen hit. P is going to have its own lane. Yozakura Family has a chance. I feel like the top 4 have somewhat of a chance, with Elusive Samurai being in the lead and P being right behind. I have not read Witch Watch and Yozakura Family, but I don't know, man. You compare this era to Chainsaw Man Jujutsu Kaisen's big era, don't stack up. Not for me anyway. I don't see Super Smartphone or High School Family and be like, yeah! It was something interesting that I wanted to report regarding the world of Dragon Ball. It seems like there's a little something every week now when it comes to Dragon Ball now that it's returned, but in particular, it was something to do with Trunks, and apparently a decision that Toyotaro, the guy that's actually drawing Dragon Ball Super, never thought in a million years would happen with Trunks, and we find out that Toriyama actually been calling some shots and making some stuff happen, allegedly, according to them anyway. So let's read this one because I find it interesting. Is Dragon Ball Super's new superhero story arc ruining Trunks? Is Dragon Ball Superhero's new story arc ruining the character of Trunks as we know him? If you haven't been following events in the Dragon Ball franchise recently, the new manga arc is serving as a prequel to the recent movie that was released in theaters last year. Part of the story is providing expanded context about what was happening on Earth while Goku and Vegeta were away fighting the epic battles of the last few manga arcs. And as it turns out, Trunks and his buddy Goten were quite busy indeed. First chapter of the manga's return is of how Trunks and Goten are spending their teenage years balancing between the demands of school and teen angst and their moonlight quest as costumed superheroes, keeping the city safe in their father's absence. Trunks, in particular, has been shown to be living a Peter Parker / Spider-Man kind of life, I like the way they put it, with his hero activities doing everything from getting him in trouble at school for tardiness to costing him a date with the girl he really wants to take out. Needless to say, it's a very different side of Trunks than we've seen before, but is it a good new dimension of the character? Trunks really became a breakout hit icon of the Dragon Ball series in Dragon Ball Z, which introduced us, of course, to future Trunks, a young adult version of Vegeta's son, who grew up in the dark future, overrun by the androids. Future Trunks was a badass, yada yada. We know about future Trunks, so I'll get to it. The future Trunks character, who was more of a hardened, sword-toting badass, apparently made a return to Dragon Ball Super, yet hailing from another dark alternate future that was overrun by rogue Kai Zamasu. Either way, Dragon Ball fans have come to know and love future Trunks as the definitive Trunks, and that is 100% facts. I gotta agree with the person that wrote this article. Who wrote this article? Do we got an author? Kofi Outlaw. I absolutely agree. That was, of course, Trunks. Like, I remember back in the day, people were sending in fan art of Trunks to Toonami, and Toonami had to say, we can't accept it and put it on air right now, dog. We haven't even licensed the episodes for Trunks yet. What are y'all doing? Like, that's how popular Trunks was, that even back then, pre, the way the internet is now, fans knew about Trunks and were excited for him to come to the anime. And so the article raises the question, is Dragon Ball Super ruining Trunks? In a recent interview, even Dragon Ball Super's mangaka Toyotaro admitted that he would never have thought of Trunks as a teenage character running around in a superhero costume, because that was not the impression of Trunks he had from Dragon Ball Z. None of us had it. It was actually Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama who insisted on Trunks getting this new element of his character explored. And honestly, with all the really awesome and cool things you could do with Trunks' character, Toriyama coming up with, let's just make him like a great Saiyaman knockoff story wannabe. Like, no. You don't go from one of the most badass characters that chopped up Mecha Frieza, packed up King Cole, was on some really epic stuff, and then he likes to dress up in a costume from time to time and be a hero. Now granted, obviously it's two different Trunks. One of them came from literal hell. Their world was freaking hell, to this Trunks that kind of grew up very coddled, very, so there's going to be the change. Also, this is a world where Trunks got to grow up with Gohan, and that also keeps that dynamic in there. So I kind of like that aspect of it, of like future Trunks looked up to Gohan in his timeline, now in this timeline looks up to Gohan yet again, and that's really cool.
Lights be flashing and looking at me, such a odd unique, yet I'm so unique and you're looking at me. If the walls could talk, they would probably repeat, and I'd probably say, bitch, get the fuck off me.